Jill, guess what time it is?
Cocktail time?
It's cocktail hour.
Cocktail hour. I'm sorry. My bad.
You were bartending tonight. What'd you make us tonight?
Well, for you, I made a Culto Al La Vida.
Delicious.
It is vodka, cranberry juice, and some sugar.
Simple syrup?
No,
Just sugar.
just sugar.
Oh, you actually just put sugar in a glass?
Yeah.
I've never been to a bar where they do that. And I've been to pretty low-end bars, so maybe that's why.
Maybe most bars probably use the sugar syrup instead because it's easier.
It's delicious. Has a little bit of cranberry, a little bit of vodka in it, a little lime juice. It's a great drink.
And
What are you
then
drinking?
For myself, I made a Blue Kamikaze.
It's pretty.
It is very pretty. It reminds me of the Caribbean Ocean. It has rum, light rum, blue curacao, and lime juice. And that's it.
Yeah, I had one of those last night. It was fantastic.
Very good.
So you're bartending. You've been bartending around the house for the last week or so. One day you came up to me and goes, "Hey, I want to get into mixology." Where did that idea come from?
I've always thought it was an interesting profession. I enjoy watching people make drinks and kind of finding out what's in them, even though I tend to always order the same thing at the bar. But then I started getting into the show Bar Rescue on the Paramount channel. And for those of you that do watch it, you know it's kind of drama filled. Sometimes there's yelling and fighting, but I truly just enjoy the bar aspect of it and the bartenders and the mixologists that they bring in to create the cocktails, and the bartenders learn how to make them. I don't know, I've just kind of started binge watching it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. As far as the drama, it can be a little dramatic. I enjoy the mixology side as well, but I know it's something you're really into, but I enjoy the business side of it. You know, they weigh all the bottles to see if the bartenders are overpouring or not making drinks correctly. Like, there's actually a science to owning a bar.
Right. And that's what we see on this show. Sometimes they'll have these frat brothers that graduate college and they're like, oh, it's going to be so much fun. Let's open a bar. Or they'll buy their old college bar that they used to go to, and then it just goes to shambles because they don't know how to run a bar.
Yeah, it takes a lot of hard work any business takes a lot of hard work, but a bar I think would be especially difficult because there's so much inventory you got to take care of. You got to take care of your customers, but you also have to have very good employees. And a lot of times on Bar Rescue, you see employees who are stealing from the bar, drinking too much, intoxicated behind the bar, and those are the ones they have to get rid of.
Or they just can't make a drink.
Yeah, they're just bad at their job.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've talked about it before. Some of these episodes, you can have inefficiencies in your business because you don't know how to run a business. But a lot of them, it just comes down to cleanliness and laziness. And I think I told you the other night, I said it takes zero effort or talent to clean or be clean. And that's where a lot of these bars mess up because they're serving food that's contaminated or dirty, or their bar is just disgusting.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's a great quote. It takes zero effort to be clean. So it's just a fact of laziness. And I'm sure so many people, you go to a bar and it's an easygoing atmosphere, but you're not running it. You're not controlling the inventory. You're not making the drinks. You're not controlling the crowd. You're just there to drink. But the idea to think, oh, I could do this. I could own this. It's a lot harder than that.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to be a bartender, but I don't want to own a bar.
So you're in the mixology. You've been making drinks. It was really interesting because the other day you said, hey, I kind of want to do some mixology, make some drinks. And I said, hey, we can do that here. Because your husband, me, loves to try new drinks and everything. I said, hey, make us some drinks. We'll try them out. And you've been making some killer drinks.
You've been very supportive of this new hobby.
Absolutely. I'm supportive of everything you do number one.
But this one you jumped right in, guns blazing.
Absolutely. You want to bartend? I don't have to go to some cocktail bar and sit at my in my kitchen and you make a couple drinks and we enjoy them. I think it's great. Is there something you want to do with this, or is this something you want to do around the house?
Well, first I need to do it around the house to learn the basics. And I think just in the little amount of time that I've been doing it, I've learned a lot. And with the way my life is right now, and with having Blair and staying home and the photography on the side, I don't want to work at a bar per se and be stuck with a certain schedule or a shift. But I would love to possibly work events or weddings, work for a catering business. So I can kind of just pick and choose when I want to do it. And it can just be a fun thing I can go do and make a little extra money doing it.
Yeah, I think it'd be great because your photography really takes off in late spring, summer, and fall. But come winter, with us not having a studio,
It slows down.
Yeah, it definitely slows down. If you could go do some events, I think you'd be excellent at it. You're personable. You're going to be good at making drinks. I think you would do really well with it. And I think you would enjoy it. And that's number one. If you can do something and enjoy it, then hey, that'd be great.
So if anyone out there is looking for a bartender, you know where to find me.
Hey, I know several people who own bars, so I'll get you behind a bar to get some practice in here soon. Now, one thing I do have to do, like I said, I love the mixology. I love the fact you're making drinks and you're doing something that you enjoy and hopefully eventually can make money with. But I got to do a little housework first. I made a post earlier today. I said, hey, share your favorite podcast episode. I'll give you a shout out on the podcast we're recording tonight. First, I got to give a shout out to Spencer Reed, who is the VP at Flow Solutions here in Muncie. One of his favorite podcasts was Tara Time, which is Tara Hazley, who I just had on this past 2 weeks, within a week or so, who started the outdoor enrichment program, which we talked about since you were a school counselor. You think it's an excellent idea to get children outside rather than at home on their screens, on their iPads all the time.
Of course.
She has this idea of just getting kids out and not just letting them go, but having structure, but also letting them kind of have some freedom as well. I think it's a great idea. So shout out to Tara Hazley, who was a podcast guest, and also Spencer Reed for mentioning that. Second is Mike Rhodes, who is the editor-in-chief at the Muncie Journal, who was a former podcast guest. He mentioned Jen Holling's podcast, where we talked about all their miscarriage issues, and they finally got pregnant, and they have a baby on the way who's actually due any time. Tuesday, which this podcast will probably come out on the 13th or 14th.
And I'm sure Jen is very eager to join us for Cocktail Hour here soon.
Jen, yeah. We're going to talk about Jen for a minute. I hope she listens. I saw Jen on been almost a week ago Monday. I went over and had a couple beers with Matt, her husband, and she's kind of that miserable 9-month, almost 40-week phase. And yeah, she's miserable. She's uncomfortable. Everything's swollen. And I really think she could do maybe have a good Blue Kamikaze.
Oh, yeah, for sure. She's ready. She's very enthusiastic about my new hobby.
Yeah, we all are around here. But shout out to Mike Rhodes. And he was actually the guy who created the music I used for my intro and outro. Like I said, he was a guest on the show. So, Mike, I appreciate you interacting with me on Facebook. And Jen Hollings, good luck. Hopefully, maybe by the time this podcast comes out, you have a baby.
Yeah, since I lost the bet of Friday, May 10th.
Yeah, you went to her baby shower, and you had, what's a little pool, I guess you would say?
Put $5 in and guessed the due date, and mine was Friday, and obviously she didn't have her that day.
Should have went later.
I know.
I am excited to announce that Jen is going to be a guest here in probably a month to 6 weeks. So we'd like to do a follow-up with her and Jill as well, because she was a guest and we talked about all their issues. But I want to see what it's been like that first 4 to 6 weeks as a mom and dad for her and Matt, how that's treated them.
Yeah, and we can commiserate in their lack of sleep.
Yeah, we'll probably, she might look like a zombie when she comes over. But wanted to give a shout out to them too. Like I said, I'm just trying to grow this podcast. Put a post up today that said, hey, just share your favorite podcast. I'll give you a shout out. So Spencer and Mike, I really appreciate it. Jill, back to your bar activity. You mentioned Bar Rescue. How did you get watching Bar Rescue?
I think I had watched an episode of it a long time ago. I want to say it. Kyle Carsey, she had me watch an episode with her once. It was the pirate bar episode, which If you've seen the show, you probably remember that one. It was a bad one. And I didn't watch it very much after that. And I think I just kind of started watching it again. I don't, sometimes during the day, I don't really put TV on for Blair as far as, for him, because he's kind of just busy playing with his toys and roaming around and doing his own thing. So sometimes I'll just put a show on that doesn't really require a lot of attention from me. So I started putting episodes of that on, and now I'm just kind of binge watching them now. So that's how I got into that show, and I think my love for bartending and mixology just grew.
Yeah, it's one of those shows you watch because you see this bar and you can tell it's just pure chaos. And then you see him kind of hit the rock bottom, and then you see John Taffer kind of build him up, and then it's great. And I think everyone enjoys that kind of comeback story,
Right.
The bar is at its worst. He comes in, he literally just takes everyone's ego away from them, and then rebuilds them. And I think people enjoy that.
Everyone knows a bar that's closed or has closed and reopened under a different name.
Everywhere.
Yes. They even say on the intro to the show that there are over 6,500 bars each year that close their doors.
That's unbelievable. Gosh, what's that? Like 12 a state? Something like that? 12 per state?
I'm sure.
That might be bad math. It's a lot. It's a lot. I mean, you think about it.
No, it's more than that, isn't it?
It'd be 100?
Well, 12 times 50 is 600.
Okay, it'd be 120 per state.
Yes.
We might have to edit that out. That bad math right there.
You're welcome for that fact check.
Anyways, 120 roughly per state. I mean, you think about, because we're in our early 30s, a lot of our bars that we went to in college have either closed or been renamed, rebought, and I'm sure that's common everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So you watch Bar Rescue, and you're like, hey, I want to start doing a little bartending, maybe some mixology. Do you Google the drinks? Is there a phone app you use? How do you even start?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, Jake, because there is a phone app that I use. It is called My Bar, and it is an app where you can add all of your ingredients in that you have. So all of your alcohol, all of your mixers, your juices. And then it creates a list of cocktails that you can make from those ingredients. And there's also a list that it gives you, say you're missing one ingredient. And maybe, you could find that and add it to your bar shelf, I think is what it's called on the app. So that's come in very handy because I think we would be Googling a lot. But this app just kind of keeps everything organized.
Yeah, it's nice because I feel like I've always been kind of a boring drinker. It was typically a beer, a Jack and Coke, maybe bourbon on the rocks, bourbon neat. But as far as a lot of the cocktails you've made, I've never really drank. Now, what are some of the favorite ones you've made so far?
I love making Cosmos.
Isn't that the drink what's that show with the girls or ladies in New York City?
They love Cosmos on Sex in the City.
Is that the one where they're in New York City and they just complain about everything? That's the same show, right?
I wouldn't say they complain about everything.
Episodes I've watched with you, there's a lot of complaining going on.
Yeah, probably about men.
Still complaining.
Anyways, this blue drink, this Blue Kamikaze, I like that one. There's that Bacardi cocktail. That's really good. I don't know. I mean, there's none that I haven't enjoyed making. There's been some that I've not really liked the taste of them.
The ones I really like that are different than you would get at a restaurant or a bar have been the margaritas, because it's not the tequila and that sweet and sour. You actually use, a little lime juice and triple sec?
Yeah, it's not.
It doesn't have that sour, sugary taste like you would get at a bar. It's
not a margarita mix. It's the triple sec and the lime juice.
It's way better than anything you would get at a restaurant or a bar.
Yes.
It's a big difference I've noticed on that one. And your idea to do this mixology thing, make drinks, kind of combined with my idea, I wanted to do more podcasts. I love having guests on from the community. I love talking to them. exploring their story, letting them promote what they do. But I also like having conversation. And some of my best conversations I've had, obviously, is with my wife. I feel like we've had great conversations on the porch, the couch, whatever it might be. I said, we need to record more of these. So I was like, hey, I've got this podcast. You're making these great drinks. Let's do cocktail hour.
You just want to drink.
I'm always up to drink. What's wrong with that?
Nothing.
Okay, then there's no reason to bring it up. I enjoy drinking, and if we can make some different cocktails and talk about them a little bit and sit here and have a conversation, I said, well, let's do it. Rather if it's a substitution, if I can't get a guest from the community in this week.
So I'm your backup guest again.
Jill, you've always been the backup guest. Like I said, the only other human in the house is sleeping right now, and he really doesn't talk much. So if I could use these as like a or a filler through the week, or just do a second podcast for the week. So I thought it'd be a great idea to have you in and talk about your mixology. We can make a drink each week and do a podcast. We can talk about news, pop culture, whatever you want to talk about. I think it was a great idea, but then you're going to throw me under the bus because I want to drink.
No, I think it's a great idea too. But you like it even more because you can drink.
It's an excellent hobby. I mean, don't take this the wrong way, but I would want to sit here and talk about photography for an hour.
I probably wouldn't either.
I mean, you're very, very good at it. You're very passionate about it, but I don't know how many camera settings we could talk about, or
I think people's eyes would glaze over listening to all
ISO
that.
settings and shutter speeds we could talk about for an hour.
But everybody loves a good drink.
Absolutely. Now, one thing I know I've started this podcast in January, and I started listening to podcasts last year, but you've got addicted to a podcast. And I think it's fantastic, and you've actually got me listening to it.
And listeners, surprise, it's not the Jake Soul podcast.
It's not. Well, you don't listen to my podcast.
Yes, I do.
I've had 17 episodes right now. How many have you listened to?
Probably 11.
11. You've been on 3, so I know you've listened to at least 3. And the other day you said, hey, I want to find the shortest one that he has online, which was my recent one with Tara Hazley, which is a great podcast. Check it out. But you listened to that one because it was short.
I wanted to make sure I got through it all while I was editing pictures the other day.
You can pause them and listen to them at other times.
I know. It was just easier to listen to the whole thing.
The podcast you're addicted to now, True Crime Garage, excellent podcast. Those are typically
But if I pause theirs, I can't pick up yours and listen to it and pause yours too.
We got to make a decision. Your husband's podcast or some random guys from Columbus.
They always leave cliffhangers about their stories.
I will say, like I said, it's True Crime Garage, and they're actually out of Columbus, Ohio,
yes,
your hometown.
Based out of Columbus, Ohio. I just started listening to them the last 3 weeks.
It's an excellent podcast.
And they've been on the air since 2015, so they've done probably pushing 250 episodes, I think.
So what's their premise?
True crime in a garage.
Okay, so they're in a garage talking about crime. Our listeners will want a little more detail about what they cover.
They cover a lot of different stories, whether it's disappearances, so missing people that have never been found. They'll talk about unsolved murders. They'll talk about murders that have been solved. It kind of runs the gamut. Some notable cases that they've covered and I've listened to. We just started the Scott Peterson case today. We're only about halfway through that one. Christopher Watts, he's the guy out west last year that murdered his wife and kids. And all of their episodes are 2 parts, and they're about an hour each part. I think tomorrow you're going to start the 4-part on Casey Anthony.
Yeah, I'm going to start that at work because I work a lot of hours, but I have an office job, so I can sit at my desk and have a podcast on. And the Casey Anthony one kind of fascinates me because I'm just like, what happened? I mean, I think it's obvious she had something to do with it.
Right.
But
I don't know if she's the cold-blooded, premeditated murderer, but she obviously has something to do with Kaylee's disappearance.
And there's so many speculations on did the little girl drown in the pool and they were trying to cover it.
Yeah.
Did she get kidnapped, which was a theory. I mean, there's so many different ideas of what happened.
In True Crime Garage, they actually covered a murder case that's fairly close to home to us. The Delphi murders from Delphi, Indiana, which is about hour and a half away.
I'd say hour and a half to 2. Yeah, very close.
2 girls went walking on a trail middle of the day in February.
Young teenagers.
Right, yeah. I think 13 and 14. And they were found murdered, and it's been 2 years.
Yeah, I think it was in 17.
It's been 2 years and no arrests yet. And what's fascinating about what I learned from the podcast, because I've always kind of thought this along the way, is there's a lot that the police have not released. You know, there's cell phone audio. They've released that picture of who they think the suspect is.
Which they just released a new one.
A new sketch.
Yes. Right?
But there's a lot that they've not released. I mean, it's speculated they have a lot more audio. They've never even released how the girls were murdered. And, you know, not that I'm sitting there wondering how. I mean, it's just... But it's... You kind of just wonder, you know, were they strangled? Were they shot? Were they... You know, it's just kind of baffling that they've not even released how they were killed.
Yeah, and that's one thing about True Crime Garage. They really dive into the details. I know one thing they mentioned was at their funerals, they both had scarves on. So
right.
That was speculation where they strangled. And I mean, it's terrible to talk about, but, you know, what happened? Like, was it a random thing? Was it a family member that knew him? I mean...
But they've mentioned if it had been somebody they knew, their name probably would have come up in the audio. Because if she pressed record for whatever reason on her phone and they knew this person, you would think their name would have been said at some point.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if that guy was just a guy traveling that, I don't know what you call someone that was just traveling across the country like that. But
right, and another detail they talked about was the girls, Delphi was out of school early that day for teachers' meetings.
And it was a weird day that was warm in February. It was
February, yeah. And someone who intentionally would go to this trail to kill two teenage girls, I mean, he's not going to know that the school's out early that day. If you're not from...
Yeah, especially
area,
if he's some guy kind of just rambling across the country.
Right. It's just it's odd.
But they bring up some excellent points in the few I've listened to about what might have happened, their ideas.
Right.
It kind of gets you really thinking about it, which I think is important.
The first part is normally just going through the evidence and the story. And the second part is kind of their theories on it and their speculation and possibly the trial or conviction of whoever did it. But like I said, some of the stories, you know, these people disappear and they're never seen again, or, you know, they are murdered and found, but they still don't have a suspect or an arrest. And Jake will back me up on this, that I've always liked Dateline in 2020.
Always watching Dateline in 2020.
So it's kind of like listening to Dateline all the time, just without the interviews, I guess, because most of the episodes is just the two hosts talking about it.
The only bad thing about it, you don't get Keith Morrison.
That's true.
Keith Morrison, he's hilarious, but he says some of this off the wall stuff about the interviews and to the victims. You're like, that's kind of awkward, but everyone loves him. I mean, he
could read the phone book and I would be
intrigued.
He's
hilarious. Yeah, I'd listen to him as well.
He could say, so did she go meet that guy or didn't she?
Yeah, just his mannerisms and stuff during the interviews are hysterical. That's why so many comedians imitate him.
Yeah, that pesky DNA.
It's always the DNA. Another thing about True Crime Garage, at the beginning of each episode, they judge a beer. They have a craft beer, and they give it, what is it, bottle caps? Is that kind
They'll give it a garage grade out of 5 bottle caps. And what I like is that typically wherever the story is out of, they'll have a local beer from a brewery there. So if they do one out of Columbus, it'll be a local Columbus beer. Or the Scott Peterson case, it's a beer out of San Francisco, or Mississippi, Virginia, wherever the story is taking place, it's normally a local beer. So I like that. They highlight a local brewery.
Yeah, the Delphi murder podcast, I think they had a beer out of Evansville, which is southern Indiana, but still
not close to Delphi.
It's a Hoosier brewery.
Yes, say it's an Indiana brewery.
Is that the only podcast you've really got hooked on? Is that kind of your main one right now?
Yes, and I'm so far behind. I mean, they've been on the air for 4 years, so and they release one. They release a story each week, so they release 2 parts each week. So I have so much to catch up on. I mean, it's not even funny how many stories I can listen to.
There's so many podcasts, and I know I'm a huge advocate of podcasts, not just my own, but just listening to so many things. There's so much education you can get. I'm a huge Joe Rogan fan, and I know you haven't listened to him much, but there's some that you've thought about listening to. Like, I just listened to one. Her name's Megan Phelps, and I think it was about 4 years ago, she left the Westboro Baptist Church, which, if you guys know anything about that, is a church that would picket soldiers' funerals and just really, honestly, in my opinion, bad people. But to listen to her rationale and how she was almost brainwashed as a kid, and the fact that she got out of that, I think it's about a 2-hour podcast. It's fascinating. There's so many stories like that you can listen to on podcasts and really get a different perspective on a lot of things.
Right. And I'm not knocking your format for your podcast. I typically just like listening to the stories, as far as like not an interview, I guess. I guess I like more that aspect of it.
Oh yeah, and that's the great thing. There's so many formats for everyone's listening pleasure.
In True Crime Garage, there's been 2 episodes that they've had other people on the phone for. The one that this is how I found out about True Crime Garage. A Facebook friend had shared the podcast on her Facebook page, and it was about a guy that went missing in Columbus this year in February from Easton. And I had kind of heard about that story, and that it's just odd. I mean, he literally just disappeared from the Hilton Hotel at Easton. And I was like, okay, well, that's a podcast. Maybe, I'll give it a try. I'll listen to that episode. Well, I'm how many episodes in now?
Oh, yeah, it's well done.
They had his wife on the phone talking about it, and they have absolutely no leads on this story. It was like he just walked away from the hotel and was never seen again. And so she's trying to get the word out any way she can to get people aware of her story. So that one, they had a guest. And then another one I listened to was about a boy that disappeared, I think in the early 90s in California. They had the FBI agent on that had worked the case, and they were eventually able to find his killer. And so he was very interesting talking about the case, and he also talked about what it takes to be an FBI agent, and he eventually became a profiler and what all goes into that. So it's not just strictly the story either. They'll dive into other things too.
Yeah, and it's neat. It's 2 guys from your hometown of Columbus. I mean, obviously we never met him or anything, but they try to cover not just national stories, but it seems like a lot of them are in the Columbus, Ohio, at least Midwest area.
Right.
What other types of podcasts do you think you could get into? I mean, obviously you're in the crime stuff, and there's so many crime ones. I mean, if you search on like Stitcher, iTunes, it has its own category.
I don't know, because I'm just busy listening to theirs.
You got quite a bit of episodes to go through.
There's quite a bit of content that I can listen to right now.
Yeah, everyone seems to have one now, and actually one I've listened to, and I never thought I would because I always made fun of his show, is Dr. Phil.
Oh, I could get into his.
It's excellent.
Yes.
I would come home and Jill would be watching Dr. Phil, and I'd usually typically make fun of it because not as much Dr. Phil, but his guest. I mean, he brings on some of the craziest people. But his podcast, a lot of it's interview format, and we listened to Steve Harvey one day driving to Ohio, and both of us were just laughing our asses off because the interaction.
Steve Harvey is hilarious.
He's hilarious, and then Dr. Phil just was able to really prompt him and get him going. It was excellent, and I've listened to a few of his other ones, and he's very good, way better than the TV show.
I always said Dr. Phil would make a really good president.
President.
Yes.
Does he really know a lot about the economy, or is this just
I don't know, but he gets stuff done. He doesn't beat around the bush.
So Dr. Phil, 2020, 2024?
Oh, well, yeah, 2024. Duh.
How do you think he would run?
What do you mean?
Party.
Oh, he is a for sure conservative.
You think he's conservative?
Yes.
Do you think he get there and just tell us what the problem is and fix everything?
That's what I'm saying. He just knows how to get stuff done. He doesn't beat around the bush. He helps people, but he helps people help themselves pretty much.
Yeah, I do like his podcast. And he actually has a series, which I'm kind of in the motivational self-improvement stuff, and it's free on his podcast. I think it's called Living by Design, which I don't think you've listened to it.
I thought it was Fill in the Blanks.
No, Fill in the Blanks is the name of his podcast. He has a series on his podcast called Living by Design.
Oh, okay.
It's about self-improvement and all that stuff that I kind of get into.
So it's like the Jake Soul podcast series of the Cocktail Hour.
In a sense, yes.
Okay.
Joe Rogan has the MMA, kind of an offshoot. He talks about mixed martial arts. That's because he's an announcer for UFC. So you have to have an offshoot of your own podcast.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
The other one I've listened to I really enjoy is Lance Armstrong, who has his own history of lying and cheating and all that stuff. But he has one called The Forward, and it's about people who have made mistakes and have moved forward from it. So if you ever get a chance to check that one out, I mean, he's had a ton of different people on. So once you get done with true crimes,
I don't know if I will.
yeah, I don't know, 250 episodes is a lot.
Yeah, and they still release 2 every week.
Yeah, you have to listen to them about every day to get ahead of those.
And it's hard for me to find time to listen to them. In the car, I sometimes will if Blair's not fussy and wants Raspberry Beret or Purple Rain on.
Yeah, Blair loves Prince.
Yeah, it's his jam.
Hey,
he's an old soul.
Hey, that's way better than have to put on some crazy kids music that's terrible. I mean,
Kids bop.
At least Prince is good music.
And during the day when he's awake, it's very hard to be with him and try to listen to something and pay attention to the details, not have to keep rewinding it all the time. So I don't really listen to it here during the day unless he's napping and I'm doing stuff in the kitchen or something.
Yeah, I would say my favorite time to listen to podcasts is either driving or if I'm at work and I know I'm going to have a few hours, I'm doing data work or something like that where I'm not really distracted is my favorite time to listen to podcasts. Or a lot of times in the morning, I'll just go for a walk and listen. That the no distraction is when I enjoy them the most because, like you said, you might have to rewind it or get distracted. And
I have to do that anyways. Yeah. It seems like.
So it's Sunday night. We're recording this. It's Mother's Day. Jill, how was your Mother's Day?
It was awesome.
Awesome.
We had a 5:30 a.m. wake up call from Mr. Blair. He's been waking up early recently. I think his teeth are bothering him.
Some molars coming in.
Yeah, so we've been up since 5:30.
It's only 9 o'clock. We're not doing too bad.
No, it's fine. Jake made me breakfast.
I did. Some mean scrambled eggs.
And toast.
Yeah, toast.
And my gift, we are going next month to a cocktails and painting event.
Cocktails and canvas.
Cocktails and canvas is what it's called. Okay. Oh, and the other bars, they'll call it pints and
pints and paints.
Pints and paints. Okay. So we're doing cocktails and canvas.
Mm-hmm. That's at Cheers over on North Broadway, right across from the mall.
Where everyone knows your name.
Everyone knows your name. It's a good bar. Great food. I look forward to it.
And they've already released what we will be painting, and it's a sparkler. So that looks kind of hard.
That's your big firework for July 4th.
Yeah, I'll have to hang it up for 4th of July.
Unless mine's better.
Yours can go in your office.
What if it's better, though?
It can still go in your
Pretty
office.
artistic, as you know.
Okay.
See, you're laughing again. That's what I do. I tell things I want to get good at, and you laugh at me.
No, you didn't say you want to get good at being artistic. You said you already were artistic.
You're already assuming that yours is going to be better than mine.
I've not said that, but why can't yours go in your office and mine go in my home? I don't have an office anymore.
Yeah, but I think it's just a case you think yours will be better, so you want to hear.
Probably more people will see yours, actually.
It's kind of like when I told you I wanted to read a book, and you laughed at my face. And what's even worse, my mother-in-law, your mom, literally fell off the couch laughing when I told her I wanted to read a book. Or when she heard.
She did not fall off the couch laughing.
She nearly did.
She laughed pretty hard, yes. And my dad laughed hard at my mom because she was laughing so hard.
I read that book.
But what did she say? She was laughing because of what I said on that podcast. Is that for how many years I've tried to get you to read a book and you swore it off and you think it's stupid.
I never said it was stupid.
And all of a sudden you want to read a book. That's what she's laughing about.
I don't see how
Not
that's
that
funny.
you want to read a book.
I don't see how someone trying to improve themselves is funny.
That's not what she's laughing about.
Anyway, I read the book.
Great.
It was fantastic. Highly recommend it. Living with a Seal, Jesse Itzler. Check it out. Great book. Even if people laugh at you, read the book. I'm reading his second book now.
Awesome.
Living with the Monks. See, you're looking at me right now like you would never, ever read a book like that.
I guess I just thought you were going to add more to that. You tell me this stuff and wait for me to have a reaction.
Yeah, because your reaction is usually negative. Anyways.
I didn't say anything.
Anyways, Jesse Itzler, like I said, he had a Navy SEAL with him. He'd done the training for a month. I read that one. His second book, he goes and lives on a monastery with monks for 2 weeks and learns about inner peace and meditation. It's really interesting. I find it interesting, but you're looking at me with a glazed over stare like I'm an idiot.
No, I'm not. Do we need to video these podcasts?
That'd be nice. We could do a Facebook Live or something.
Then your listeners will know that you're lying.
No, they wouldn't. You had that glazed over stare. What are you reading right now?
Nothing.
Nothing? Not reading a book, huh?
I finished that book, a week or two ago?
Maybe.
I have another one to read. I just haven't started it yet.
What book's that?
I think it's called Paradise Valley, maybe.
Is that fiction, nonfiction?
It's fiction. I think it's a crime book.
You're all about crimes.
I get into it. It's not everything that I read.
Even fake ones?
Fake ones.
Fiction.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get into fiction.
Okay, you've read one book.
I'm more of a nonfiction guy.
Yeah, and you've read one book in 20 years.
Let's say 20. Yeah. I'd give you 17 years. So how was the rest of your Mother's Day since you've insulted me about my book?
You brought it up.
I'm just asking how your Mother's Day was doing. For I know I was getting insulted.
I was talking about my Mother's Day, and you had to bring up reading a book.
We got off track. How was the rest of your Mother's Day?
So back to me, since it's Mother's Day.
Yeah.
I was actually able to take a nap, which never happens, because I'm always on edge, because I never know when Blair's going to wake up from his.
But your awesome husband was here to take care of him.
True, but I would have woken up if he woke up, since I slept on the couch. And I was nervous because he literally took a 25-minute nap yesterday, and that was it. Today, we got 2 hours out of him. So I think I slept for probably about 20 minutes on the couch, but it was nice just to lay there.
You got a nice power nap on the couch.
Yes.
Yeah, it was a good day. I mean, it was rainy. It rained all day today, but I think we got a lot of stuff done. Said had a good breakfast. You got a nap. You got a nice Mother's Day present. After Blair's nap, he was not fussy.
He was in much better spirits.
Had some leftovers for dinner. It was solid.
And now we're drinking cocktails.
Yeah, it's a little after 9. Had a few cocktails. Just sitting here talking. I said enjoying this cocktail hour. And like I said, I wanted to make more content, more podcasts to post for everyone. So this is going to be one of many. If you're okay with it. If you're okay with bartending.
I'm down anytime.
So maybe later this week we can do another one. Any ideas for your cocktail since you're the mixologist of the house?
I'll think about it.
Going to have something special for us?
Like my own creation?
Whatever you want.
I need to get good at making established creations.
You made good Long Islands last night, and I think that would be a difficult cocktail to get everything right.
Yeah, I need to work on those.
It was good. It was good. I think your expectations were a little high, but
yeah,
because you were reliving the glory days at Nino's when you could get a Long Island that was really, really good.
They did make really good Long Islands.
I don't know, because what's a Long Island? It's rum, vodka, tequila, gin, triple sec, lime juice, lemon juice.
This recipe was lemon juice.
Lemon juice, syrup, simple syrup. No simple syrup.
I don't think so.
And then a little splash of Coke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if they added a little bit more lemon juice or something like that. You just have to play with it.
Yeah.
I'll be your guinea pig.
I'm sure you will be.
You're doing triathlon next weekend.
That is true.
It's a big deal.
I haven't done one for a couple years.
I'm looking forward to it. What distances is it?
It is a 200-yard swim, a 12.5-mile bike, and a 2-mile run.
Water's going to be a little chilly on Saturday.
Yeah, I'll get in and get out.
We went fishing last Sunday, and the water was about 56 degrees.
That's a little chilly.
You better swim fast.
That's like, it hurts. It's so cold.
It's chilly.
Yes. And I don't have a wetsuit for that short of a distance to swim.
It's supposed to warm up a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be over 60.
Ugh.
So you better swim.
Yeah. And the faster I swim, the quicker I can get out.
Any goals for this? Any time goals, or you just want to get out and get one done and maybe try one later this year?
If I could do it, well, I did my last one in 1 hour and 9 minutes, but the distances were a little different. If I could keep it around the same time, I'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I think you've trained a whole lot more for this one, or just leading up to this one, than the one before. So I'm sure you could hammer out an hour. Said you're going to be running out of that water.
Yeah.
So, well, that's what, Saturday? It's on Saturday the 18th? 18th, right? Well, we'll have to keep everyone updated on how the triathlon goes and how the mixology is going. Jill, thanks for joining me tonight.
No problem.
We're going to do this more often.
I'm always happy to be the backup guest.
Hey, you got to be something. You got to be something. You got to be somewhere. And I want to release more podcasts. And you were backed by popular demand. Everyone's like, hey, you need to have Jill on. You guys' conversation and banter is really good. We want to hear more of that.
It's because you're mean to me.
You're mean to me, so hey, it works. We bounce off each other. So, all right, we'll wrap this up. Jill, good luck on your triathlon coming up. We'll have to talk about that maybe next weekend, see how that went, how that cold water treats you. I'm looking forward to a new cocktail next weekend. Maybe you can do some homework and get us something special for next Saturday or Sunday.
I can do that.
And maybe we'll find some pop culture or some news things to talk about. Cheers. Thanks, everyone, for listening. As always, the Jake Soul Podcast. I'm on Facebook, the Jake Soul Podcast, Instagram on the Jake Soul Podcast. And if you have any comments, concerns, questions, whatever, email me at the jakesoulpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks.